Hello and welcome to the Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today I'm reviewing the 2011 to 2015 series Batwoman, part of DC's The New 52, as well as the 10-issue pre-New 52 run on Detective Comics by Greg Rucka, which basically serves as the first volume of this series. Batwoman actually got her start in the Silver Age of comics, making her first appearance in 1956 as Kathy Kane. Her and her soon-to-be-introduced niece, Elizabeth Betty Kane, the first Batgirl, were introduced to Gotham City as love interests for Batman and Robin to help combat notions of the dynamic duo being gay for each other. These characters were largely used as damsels in distress types, and eventually, in order to limit the ridiculous size of the Bat family, they were more or less removed from continuity. Following the soft reboot of the DC Universe in Crisis on Infinite Earths, Betty Kane was reimagined as the hero Flamebird for the Teen Titans, and Kathy Kane was said to have been killed off by the League of Assassins. Eventually, DC decided to bring back Batwoman, this time as Kate Kane, who was, rather ironically, an out-and-proud lesbian. Kate initially appeared as a civilian, dating Gotham Police Detective Renee Montoya, herself only recently out as a lesbian, before beginning to appear as a bit of a guest character as the new Batwoman. Eventually, during Bruce Wayne's supposed death, she would become the headlining character of Detective Comics, which is where we're starting today, so let's take this away. Just before the start of her Detective Comics run, Kate Kane had a showdown with a group calling themselves the Religion of Crime. I don't know a lot about them, but they're apparently therianthropes, meaning they're were-people, like werewolves and were-snakes and so forth. There's your word for the day, therianthropy. You're welcome. The ROC call Kate the twice-named daughter of Cain, who is supposed to die to fulfill some destiny, so they kidnap her and stab her in the heart, like you do. Luckily, Renee, who was the DC superhero The Question at the time, saved her life and she didn't die. So, already pretty impressive origin here. Yeah, Batman's had his back broken, whoop-de-doo. Kate survived being stabbed in the damn heart. Now that's hardcore. Healed up, back in the cow, and headlining Detective Comics, Kate again faces off against the Religion and their new leader, Alice. The name Alice comes from Alice Pleasance Liddell, as in Alice in Wonderland, and so she speaks entirely in Lewis Carroll quotes, which is really damn annoying. I'm sorry, but I just do not share every other writer's fascination with Lewis Carroll. I can respect his creativity, but such downright worship of him is unnecessary and honestly annoying. Besides, aren't there enough Carroll-themed villains in Gotham already? Oh, yeah, what she said. The original Religion of Crime shows up to actually assist Batwoman in fighting Alice's new Religion of Crime as they try to stop them from unleashing a devastating chemical attack on Gotham. But as they do, Alice reveals to Kate her secret identity. Turns out Alice is actually Elizabeth Kane. No, not the Flamebird Betty Kane, who does show up in the series as this Kate's cousin. Instead, this is Beth Kane, Kate's twin sister, who was thought to have been murdered when they were children. On reflection, this seems like it should have been obvious, because how many ladies with porcelain white skin can there be in the world? Kate is the daughter of military parents, and as her father moved up in the military, her family became targets. Eventually her, Beth, and their mom were all kidnapped. Her mom was killed, and it was thought Beth was too, but somehow she is still alive and was probably tortured until the point that she became this crazy madwoman. It's always important to get a good cast of characters around your hero, and Kate's is pretty good. Along with cousin Bet, we have her father, Colonel Jacob Kane, and his new wife, inconveniently also named Catherine. The Colonel is Kate's primary support, the guy behind the computer. He helps Kate obtain all her equipment, sends her out with his old army buddies to train her, and even builds her a mini Batcave of her own. He's clearly a loving father, too. When Kate gets kicked out of West Point for being gay, which is the point that she comes out to him, he doesn't hesitate to accept who she is. What a great dad. Stepmother Catherine, on the other hand, a rich heiress type, is unable to fully let go of her homophobia and accept Kate, and Kate delights in making her uncomfortable. And just look at this art here. It is incredible. Artist J.H. Williams III really blows my mind in this series. It might seem ironic that last week I was complaining about Ultimate Comics Spider-Man having too many double-page spreads, and then now I'm going to love this comic and its art, which might actually have more of those. But still, it's not really fair to compare the two series. In that series, you still had fairly standard panel layouts, just spread weirdly across 2 pages. In this series, it's a freaking art form. Like this one here, which not only illustrates the orchestra's music playing, but uses those notes as extra panels to emphasize what is being discussed. So awesome. Or there's this one, that uses Kate's poisoning as the focal point of the action, but keeps all the action along the outsides of the pages. Or this one, that uses the gutter to cross from day to night, but has mostly standard panel layouts on the actual pages. And these are all only from the first volume. Here are some of my favorites from the New 52 run, like this one, focusing on the drowning woman, La Llorona, this one of Maggie Sawyer breaking down a crime scene, or this one of Batwoman and Wonder Woman traveling through a maze that is drawn as a maze conveniently shaped like Batwoman's symbol. There are plenty more great ones, like these here, but sadly, I don't have time to get into all of them. Kate's fight with Sister Alice ends with Beth falling into the Gotham Bay. Her body is never recovered though, so you just know she'll be back someday. Turns out, though, that Jacob knew all along that Beth was still alive and has been lying to Kate all these years, which sadly ends their partnership as Kate strikes out as Batwoman solo. She does try to train Flamebird some, calling her plebe and making her wear a gray jumpsuit, which apparently requires not wearing a bra. Ouch. Eventually she cuts ties with her too, though, but Bet isn't ready to hang up the tights. So she goes out on her own, which ends in some pretty disastrous consequences. This goes down during the first 3 volumes of the New 52 portion of the series. These volumes are all basically one arc as Batwoman is hunting down missing children that have been kidnapped by the drowning woman, also called La Llorona, by the Spanish-speaking community she's terrorizing. This is all part of a bigger plot led by a sorcerer named Marrow, who is using people's beliefs and urban legends to bring monsters to life. This includes bringing forth Bloody Mary and turning Killer Croc into a mutated alligator in the sewers type, and then eventually into a Hydra. While this is happening, a government agency called the Department of Extranormal Affairs blackmails Kate into working for them by threatening to throw her father in jail for stealing military equipment. Equipment he stole to help her become Batwoman. Also during this time, Kate begins to date Maggie Sawyer, captain of the Major Crimes Division in the Gotham PD. Maggie is a character from the Superman comics who is one of the earliest gay characters in a comic from a major distributor. Maggie and Kate's relationship begins to come into some troubles due to the amount of time both are spending at work, and Maggie's inability to solve the missing children case, which she is coming under a lot of fire for. This major arc ends with Batwoman, with Wonder Woman's help, defeating Morrow and the mother of all monsters and rescuing all the children. She then brings them to Maggie, where she proposes marriage. This marriage became a big point of tension between the creative team, who wanted it to happen, and the editors and bigwigs at DC, who did not. DC's excuse for why it shouldn't happen is that their characters shouldn't be happy, which is utter bullshit. Marriage, first of all, hardly means perfect contentment. Second, it's not like there's never been married couples in comics before. It's happened plenty, actually. They clearly just didn't want a big gay marriage to happen in their comics. On the other hand, I can't fully agree with the idea that the marriage should have happened. At least not yet. I know Williams and W. Halden Blackman, the creative team, had been writing and drawing the character for like 4 years now, and almost all of that time with her dating or flirting with Maggie. And that seems like a long time. But reading through the comics all at once, this relationship actually feels like it moves really, really quickly. This is a problem with the way comics are written and the amount of time that flows in them. Only one issue comes out per month, and since one story arc often takes 6 issues these days, that story arc often takes 6 months to happen. But a lot of times, the actual events of that arc happen in a short amount of time. The final 3 issues leading up to Kate's proposal, for example, all seem like they have to have happened on the same day, or at the very most, within a few days of each other. To a reader, it feels like they've been together for maybe a week or two, and they're already getting married, moving just a little too fast. I don't think comic writers ever really understand that comics can't move at real time in order for things to make sense. That's not just a problem with this comic, though. I've noticed it with a number of New 52 comics, and in fact, DC may have been pushing for a real time passage to occur in the comics at this time period. Whatever the case, the point became so contentious that Williams and Blackman quit in the middle of the 4th arc, leaving it unfinished. So DC brought in Mark Andreyko to finish writing the series. I'm not sure why they picked Andreyko specifically, but I can't help but feel it was an intentional great big middle finger to fans of the series, because at this point, the comic really starts to suck. The 4th arc had involved the DEO trying to further manipulate Kate by revealing that they had discovered Alice and were keeping her alive and well in a secret location. They promised to give her to Kate and let her leave the DEO if she agreed to unmask Batman. She agrees, but her family, even her stepmother Catherine, who managed to figure out, on her own, that Bet was Flamebird and Kate was Batwoman, convince her to drop her tendencies toward martyrdom and work together with friends and family to defeat the DEO. So a big plan is launched to pretend to unmask Batman while Flamebird and the Colonel's old army buddies break Alice out of DEO jail. When Andreyko takes over, he either missed this not-so-subtle build-up, or simply had no idea how to end it, so Kate simply becomes gung-ho on unmasking Batman. All the characters just stop acting like they have, though. Even Alice stops quoting Carol constantly, which seems like it should be a relief, but it's just replaced with generic seductive lady villain dialogue, which is actually worse. Kate begins acting more like her Silver Age counterpart, becoming noticeably dim-witted and unsure of herself, to the point that Batman has to give her a speech about how she's smarter than she gives herself credit for. When has she not given herself credit? Has Andreyko even read this comic? Later he even has Kate directly say, "Mysteries were never my thing." What? Since when? She's been a damn good detective so far. There was even an arc earlier that had her solving a kidnapping that involved a serial killer, and it was shown side by side with Batman solving the same case 10 years earlier, as it turns out that the killer had returned and resumed hunting young women. During that arc, we saw Kate own her detective skills and work every bit as well as Batman. But now all of a sudden she feels unable to solve mysteries and needs men to give her a push to be better? Whatever. We even have Batman take what seemed to originally have been Kate's idea of faking his unmasking and make it his own. Because heaven forbid women be the ones responsible for anything useful, am I right? But he manages to come up with what is probably an even stupider idea, disguising Colonel Kane in his Batman outfit. Luckily this works though, because Bones, who has been built up over the last 4 arcs as a serious villain, just devolves at this point into a whiny spoiled brat with daddy issues. Yeah, this comic really sucks now. Then there's the absolutely awful dialogue that we keep getting. Lots of terrible banter between Bet and Kate, and Batwoman suddenly spitting out a bunch of one-liners in battle that I guess are supposed to be snappy, but instead are things like this, where she says, "Vampires, huh? Looks more like bath salts to me." What does that even mean? What does that even mean? Man, this comic sucks now. Kate is just such a mess in general at this point. Not only is she suddenly too stupid to solve crimes, she sucks at fighting. She keeps being very easily fooled by people pretending to be defeated or injured so they can lure her in for a sucker punch. Then there's the absolutely horrible arc of her falling in love with a vampire lady. Nocturna, as she's called, or her civilian name, Natalia Mitternacht. Yeah, she's a vampire literally named Midnight. This comic, I can't even. This arc is done to further drive the wedge in the Kate-Maggie relationship. Already Andreyko had Kate break it off to appease Maggie's ex, and, the bigwigs at DC. See, one night she stumbled into their home, beaten up and bruised, and scared Maggie's daughter Jamie, who was visiting at the time. Maggie's ex-husband used this event as an excuse to file to have Maggie's custody rights of Jamie taken away. Of course, this nonsense only could have happened if Maggie didn't tell Kate she was bringing Jamie by, which sure, okay, but then also didn't tell Jamie that she was living with Kate, and also if Jamie was stupid enough to go over to somebody's house, walk into their bathroom, and then just start screaming for no reason when that person is in their bathroom. Also, Maggie's ex would have to prefer to have his daughter grow up without a mother over having his ex getting married to another woman. I seriously hate this comic. Kate convinces him to drop the lawsuit by leaving Maggie. She doesn't even have the courage to break up with her directly though, just leaves her a Dear John letter and walks out. Is it still Dear John if it's to a lady? Or is that Dear Jill? Whatever. Kate rebounds into the arms of Mitternacht, because I'm pretty sure Andreyko can't write a comic if it doesn't somehow involve a vampire obsessed with sex seducing the main female character of the series. While I kind of love the idea of Batwoman being a vampire, that doesn't really happen, and a theoretical idea is literally the only positive thing I have to say about this entire portion of the series. Even the art for this portion is kinda all over the place. It's never really as strong as Williams' art, and it jumps from perfectly fine to pretty hideous, and sometimes from one page to the next, like here, where it's okay, and then this is literally the next page, and why does Kate look like that? What is that? I don't know. To drive home just how bad this portion is, the collected editions include Batwoman's appearance in DC's Secret Origin series, which covers the backgrounds of their characters. This comic, done by a different creative team as seen here, actually does respect the original creators and reimagines much of Rucka's and Williams' writing and art for a short recap of Kate's history. It even contains a new version of that great 2-page spread with the music notes. How awesome is that? What's not awesome is the last story arc of this series, which involves Kate and a bunch of the magical people of the DC universe getting in this giant space battle against Morgan Le Fay. I don't really know why this is where they decided to take the comic, and I don't really care. That's where it ends though, so let's go ahead and end this and get to the breakdown. The writing in this series isn't always that strong, but Williams and Blackman clearly try very hard to make Kate strong, smart, and likable, and their efforts are highly appreciated. Couple that with Williams' taking comic panel layouts to a new level of art form and some all-around very strong and interesting art, and you have some very good ingredients for a very great comic. Unfortunately, it gets cut down all too early by Mark Andreyko, doing figuratively to the comic what the Religion of Crime literally did to Kate. His run on the series is nothing short of terrible, and the artists, while not bad, aren't nearly enough to make it worth continuing. And that's why I'm giving this series a 7 out of 10. If I separated the two portions, it would probably be an 8 for the Williams era and a 3 for the Andreyko series. Just ignore everything after Volume 4, even though it ends mid-story arc, and you'll find yourself with an excellent comic. Thank you everybody for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I've got 1 month under my belt in these videos now, and here's hoping for another month and many more to follow. Hope to see you then, next time, right here, in the Comic Cave.